Today I'm going to talk about things that English people just do better. Car maintenance. In England, it's pretty universal and everybody has to reach the same kinds of standards, and the standards are very strict. So what they call it here is MOT. So it's basically your inspection of your car, and you have to do it annually. Every year you have to get your car inspected to make sure it's safe. You have to check the tires, all the safety features, all the lighting, all the lights. In America, each state has its own mandates, all of the driving rules, regulations, driver's licenses, and car inspections. And so you have various levels of what is acceptable based on the state that you're in. I think it's for a newer car, you don't have to have it inspected for a few years. And even for the older car, I remember correctly, in New Jersey, you only had to do it every 2 years. Because it's kind of broken system where it varies from state to state. You could literally have a car that's passed in one state. You go to the next state and it wouldn't pass in that state, but because you live in a state where they have more lax laws about your car safety, then you're now on the road with a car that is actually not safe for you or anyone else around you. I definitely think that the car maintenance and the vehicle regulations are done much better here in England. Sketch comedy. I know I'm going to get a lot of flack from this from Americans, but sketch comedy is just better here in England. And I think it might have to do with the culture of just not taking yourself too seriously and being willing to, no matter what level you're at, make fun of yourself and be made fun of, and good fun, and all in a good spirit. It's just the way it is here. There is not as prevalent a PC culture here as there is in America. And I do feel like when it comes to comedy, that sometimes that can actually be a hindrance rather than a benefit. Sometimes by breaking down these stereotypes and making fun of them, we can actually learn a little bit about each other and ourselves and not take it so seriously in those contexts. Obviously, that in the context of comedy, it's supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be different, it's not meant to be offensive. But I do think there's such a PC culture in America that even those, specific instances sometimes can come off as offensive, even in a context like comedy. So I just feel like because we don't have that big of an influence of PC culture here in England, and there's always been people that made fun of each other and themselves forever here in England, sketch comedy just always comes off a lot funnier, and it's much more timeless as well. The drinking culture. I had so much fun drinking in America, don't get me wrong. I had a great time. But it's more of a party atmosphere, and it's more of a completely losing your mind kind of atmosphere. You party to an extreme in America because you wait so long to be able to drink. You have to be 21 to drink in America, and you finally have this newfound freedom, and you almost go a little bit berserk into the extreme of it. The novelty of it tends to wear off really quickly, and it also can tend to lead to a lot of medical issues and drunk driving situations and things like that where people are not safe. And I don't think that that's a good idea. I think that it should definitely be reformed in some way in America. And whereas America, because it's just there's such a strong hold on it, and it's being held together so tightly, and the taboo around it is so strong that it almost creates an environment for more havoc rather than to do it safely. I do think that the English have the drinking culture down pat here. Don't get me wrong, there's still people that go to extremes, still people that do things that are unsafe, like drinking while driving, but the drunk driving laws are much stricter. You can drink at an earlier age at 18 here in England, and you have just this culture around drinking that's not so taboo. The community is kind of more in a relaxed state about it. So, and it's more seen as a way to just kind of wind down and spend time with your family rather than to party and go a little bit crazy. It makes it a lot more enjoyable for the masses. And I feel like that it also teaches the newer generations that are learning that culture as they're coming up to adulthood, a way to handle it that is just a much more calmer and responsible way. The preservation of history. And I don't want to say that history isn't preserved in America, but it's not preserved in the same way. America just has such a bigger focus on being modern and futuristic and the consumer side of life that it doesn't really take the time to appreciate where we've come from. But the things that are preserved in America are preserved in a very modern text, preserved in a way that promotes consumerism about it more than just promoting history and learning about it. And I think that that is a huge detriment to society in a way, because you can't really appreciate where you're going unless you appreciate where you've been. Here in England, there's so many things that are just in your face constantly about the history of England, and they're extremely proud of it. And of course, it's been around a lot longer than America, so there's of course going to be a lot more things readily available to look at, and the space as well, right? Because it's a smaller country, you'll have access to a lot more things than you would in America, because it is difficult to travel across country and things like that in America. There are museums that are completely free here. There are castle grounds and ruins that you don't have to pay for to go see. You can just go and see and be a part of it. And you could picnic outside of a castle and things like that without having to pay for it. And then it's just stuff like that is just unheard of in America. Something I think that England does really, really well. And I hope they keep it up, because it is a very, very special thing about England that they should preserve as much as they possibly can. An emphasis on manners as a culture. So not just like individual manners and what an individual family or person's, moral compass thinks, but an imposition of manners in a general sense. Saying you're sorry when you run into somebody, saying pleases and thank yous, holding the door for someone, acknowledging that there's a line and not cutting it, or not trying to think that, you deserve to go in front because you, whatever your reasoning might be. That kind of thought process of just being aware of people around you and aware of the sense of community and trying to keep the community together, I think is something that England does so well. And I really love it. That's one of the things I love the most about living here. We're so individualistic in America, and we just only worry about ourselves. We're the only people that have, we're the only person that has some place to be. We're the only person that's going through something, or stressed, or tired, or overworked and underpaid, or not taken care of, or, I believe this and therefore everyone else should have to cater their lifestyles to what I believe. Those are the kinds of things that you encounter a lot in America. I'm not saying it's not here in England. There are certain instances of that here in England, but overall, the culture is more about just making it a good place to live and making sure everybody has a good work-life balance and doing their best to contribute to society as well as take care of yourself and the other people around you. Taxes. The tax system in America is so complicated. You get taxed at every single level of government, and there's a lot. And you are responsible for filing your own taxes, and then you get in trouble if you do your taxes wrong. I'm not a tax expert. I'm not even an accountant. I'm pretty good at math, but other than that, it's really, really hard. And there's so many loopholes, and there's so many things that you need to worry about and think about. You can hire someone in America, but not a lot of people have that extra money, and it costs a couple $100s sometimes just to have someone look through your taxes. You have to pay local taxes, you have to pay school taxes, you have to pay state taxes, you have to pay federal taxes. Not to mention the fact that you have to pay a sales tax when you go to a store. If you inherit money from someone who unfortunately dies, then you have to pay taxes on that money. If you win money at a casino or in a competition, you have to pay tax on that. So everything is taxed, and it's handled, and each individual has to be aware of those laws, understand those laws, and implement those laws to their personal, unique situation. And you are on strict penalty if you do something wrong. Here in England, England revenue takes care of all of that. You get taxed on your salary, and you get told if you pay too much, you get a refund. If you don't pay enough, they send you a letter and you pay it. And the taxes are done. You don't have to file your taxes at the end of the year. You don't have extra sales tax that you have to pay when you go to the store. And when you inherit money or you win money, that's your money. That's it. I don't know it as well yet. Obviously, I've only been here a little while. But from my experience, it's much more simple. It's much easier to understand. And the onus of anything going wrong is on the England Revenue Service. It's not on the individual. And that is something that England definitely does miles above America. Public transit. In America, I grew up in a suburb. I never had access to public transportation except for a school bus. If I had to go even take a train to go to New York or Philadelphia, I had to drive to the train station. There's some towns that don't even have bus services and things like that. It's really, really difficult to get around if you don't drive in America. Whereas here, I still don't have a driver's license yet. And I have been able to get to and from work. I've been able to get to people's homes, do my shopping, and just get out of the house and do things without having to learn how to drive. And I actually really enjoy taking the train and the bus. I take the train more because of the situation that I'm in, but I actually really enjoy not having to worry about it. It's a bit intimidating for someone like me who's never really had to do it before, but once I get over that kind of hurdle of myself, of my own personal intimidation with it, it's actually really easy, and everyone is really helpful when you're not understanding where you're going or you might be in the wrong spot or something like that. For the most part, public transportation here, in my experience, has been phenomenal, and they definitely do it much better than America. America can take some tips from England on that for sure. Food quality. Here in England, it's really just a national mandate, it's a national safety standard, and it's really, really good. Partially because they have the National Health Service, they can put regulations in about the levels of sugar, the levels of fat, the levels of chemicals that you can have in the processed food, as well as any food that you're creating or you're making in or selling in a restaurant or a pub or from your farm or anything like that. I went through like sugar withdrawal for a while I was here in England. When I first got here to England, I couldn't find anything that I liked to eat. And it was because my body was so dependent on all of the chemicals and sugars that are pumped into American food. Now that I've gotten a lot of that out of my system, I can really appreciate the freshness, the taste, and the textures and stuff that comes through the food that is just so much more enjoyable. And I really appreciate all of the food that I have now because it's about taste and sustaining myself, and not so much about like feeding this sort of like addiction I didn't even know I really had. So in my opinion, the food standards and quality is so much better here in England. And once you get used to the fact that you're not going to have those sugary tastes and that kind of stuff, the food actually tastes really, really good here in comparison to America, except for pizza. America has its cornerstone on pizza. I'm sorry. They've cornered the market on pizza, and I can't find pizza as good here. I definitely think England does better than America when it comes to food. There you go, guys. Those are the things that I think England does better than America does. I hope you enjoyed this video. I do appreciate the view. I appreciate you checking us out, and hopefully I'll get to see you in another video soon. Bye.